This is your Thursday Fantasy PSA. Remember to take all your Thursday night players out of your flex spot. Thank you and have a nice week.
Of Rugby with Pads, coming at you today for your week 4 waivers preview show. But before I start, just a bit of housekeeping. You might have noticed if you follow me on social media at Rugby with Pads, wherever you find it, even on TikTok, that we have finally launched the Etsy store. I'll put a link down here somewhere for those of you watching on YouTube. But loads of new merch out. We've got loads of new designs. We've got see you on the virtual gridiron, made the cut as a design. I'll put that somewhere over here you guys to look at. We have we've got a couple more as well. We've got a special October edition, so a bit early for you. That will be a special edition for this month only, available in a long sleeve, as well as all your classic Rugby with Pads merch. Get you warm over the summer months. I realise I'm wearing this and it's nearly 20 degrees, so maybe ill-advised today. But without further ado, let's jump into week 4. And after week 3, I think we're going to come crashing down to earth a little bit. And with that, I want to go over people who are breaking out, so people who I think will continue on this momentum, this train that we had of a momentous week 3, but also look at the guys who I think are really, we found out maybe they're not living to expectation. Either they've broken out and they've come crashing down, and basically, who can you drop and who's breaking out is what we're going to go for. That's going to be our theme for this week, and we have a stacked lineup. And also, for any of you going to the Wembley games, I will be there. I probably won't be wearing my Rugby Pads gear. I'll probably be wearing some kind of Aaron Donald shirt or my very garish Rams blue Letterman jacket. But if you do see me, come and say hello. I'll be dropping off some stuff, and I'll have stickers and stuff if you want it as well. You know, it's silly stuff like that. But recently I've been talking to some people in the fantasy community, and it's been really great. And I hope to see a few of you out there this Sunday. Actually, this is going to release on Thursday, so DM me in time. Let's go for a meetup. I'll buy you a beer if you can find me. If 30 of you find me, maybe I won't buy 30 beers. Anyway, let's take a look at this week's slate of players who we're going to have positive and negative projections on, effectively starts and sits, but who can you drop and who's breaking out? And some of these players I'll talk about are going to be guys that we looked at in the waivers show, but I want to put them into context of who I really think is going to do well this week, not just maybe ones that are there for stashes for later on. And we're going to start with a wide receiver who I'm really interested in. And I've mentioned on the waivers episode, I couldn't pull the trigger on him before. I have done now. Marvin Mims. Against the Bears this week, I think he is going to have an amazing time. The Bears just don't have any deep secondary defense, and I think Russ is finally getting into his groove a little bit and throwing it. Yes, they conceded 70 points. I think it might be still a bit of a showdown if the Chicago Bears can show anything on offense. That's yet to be seen. But I think Marvin Mims is, you can probably rely on him for a touchdown or a long shot somewhere. He's going to be much more suitable in PPR leagues, but some of these guys are not going to be wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. These guys who I think are going to be better than advertised. And Marvin Mims is someone who I think is going to be considerably better than advertised. Elsewhere, someone who has already broken out, and we saw it last week after scoring 52 points. I'm a bit less bullish on him this week, but Devon A.K.A, he's finally come off my taxi squad where he scored 50 points on my taxi squad. But I think Devon A.K.A is going to form part of the regular rotation, and he's probably the future of the running back position in Miami, at least the short to mid-term future. We'll have to see how that goes. He showed incredible balance incredible skill running through the tackles as well as an interesting amount of play in the receiving game, especially with Jalen Waddle out. If Jalen Waddle's out again, I could see Devin A.K.A. with his burning speed being used as that kind of scat back, the guy who comes in the slot, who lines up out wide, who runs wheel routes and end arounds, etc. He could be used in a lot of different ways. He's a very versatile weapon, and I think that showed the fact he got like 230 all-purpose yards. This week, they're playing against Buffalo, who basically don't have a run defense that I could see anyway. So I think they'll have quite as easy a time as they did last week. But I think Devin A.K.A. will be mixed up. I expect him to score 10 to 12 plus in PPR because you've still got a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. But that is better than you would expect from any kind of rookie with his draft capital at this time of the season. And you know what, we've done a wide receiver. Let's do the full stack of people, shall we? Let's do a QB who I think hasn't necessarily broken out, but I think has just shown that he's been, you know what, actually he has had a breakout, and it's more of a breakout since he's joined the Lions. And it's going to be obvious. I think it's Jared Goff. Jared Goff's playing on Thursday night, so if you've got him and you've seen a flex spot, if you've got any Lions in a flex spot, take them out now. But Detroit are going over to Green Bay, and I think Green Bay are going to be surprised. Despite the less well-functioning offense last week, Jahmyr Gibbs really couldn't get it going on the ground, which is a real shame because I think he's fantastic as a player. But Jared Goff, I think, will have a field day. He's a dink and dunk. He's a take what you give him kind of quarterback. And if the Green Bay in their very tough secondary take away the long ball, he's going to go short. And he's going to rack up, first downs. If you play the points per first down, he's a great play this week, I think. He's going to, get some touchdowns as well. I think he's shown he can do it on the floor as well because again, he'll take what they give him, what the defense gives him. I really like Goff. I've always liked Goff. I liked him at the Rams. It just had a couple of bad seasons, and obviously Stafford came in and won it all. But Jared Goff, I think, is going to be a great pickup this week. If you haven't already got him, I would go out and get him. I'm starting with a number of places because I have faith that on Thursday night he's going to set your lineup for success, I think. And we'll finish off. We've done wide receiver, running back, quarterback. Let's go tight end because it's normally a position that I don't like talking about because it's not a very deep position and there's not many people other than Travis Kelce in this really. But I try and challenge myself a little bit, and I've been really interested. I've had my eye on Donald Parham for a good long while. He's like 6'8", I think, or something silly. He played in the XFL for a little while, or I think it was him, either that or another D Parham, because I know there is another D Parham who is a tight end in the league as well. He might be a free agent now, but he was playing in Broncos land. But anyway, Donald Parham, I think he's like a 4th or 5th year now, but he's coming to his own. I like the opportunity here. He's had 4 targets in the end zone and corralled 3 touchdowns, 2 of them last week. It's not a volume play, but I said earlier in the week on my waivers show, if you don't listen to that, it's released every Monday. I know some people only listen to this, some people only listen to the waivers show, some listen to both. So sorry if you're getting a bit of duplicate content here, but I've watched a bit more tape on him and studied his numbers a little bit better. And I think that he is the end zone threat, especially with Mike Evans out, who was that big body receiver. I think we'll see Quentin Johnson take a bit more of a step up. He was targeted on 26% of his routes last week, which, if you don't track that metric, is a good metric. So the 26% is much better than Josh Palmer, which I think was 14. He didn't outscore Josh Palmer, but deep shots, etc. Either way, Parham, when he runs routes, he's normally targeted because he's schemed up that way, and he is a monster to cover. And I think against who are they playing? They're playing Las Vegas, who don't have a defense. They're very porous in that regard. I think Parham has touchdown upside, which is at the moment, when you're looking at those tight end 2-3 positions that you have to play those spots either because you punted on tight end, you just want touchdown upside. Parham gives you that. So that's 4 guys who I think are breaking out or have broken out already. Let's go with 4 guys, 4 big names that you can drop. We'll do the same. We'll do a tight end, a running back, a receiver, and a quarterback, and then we'll mop up everyone afterwards. But starting with tight end, and I'm going to bring out the big names here. We're going to go Kyle Pitts. Now, you may be saying in the comments, Kyle Pitts is always a wash. Why do I keep playing against him then? If he's a wash and everyone knows it, why do I keep playing? If you've got him, drop him. Desmond Ridder isn't feeding the ball. Their offense will go through Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier and a touch of Desmond Ridder. But that touch of Desmond Ridder isn't enough to get Kyle Pitts the ball, and he hasn't shown the dynamism that we were expecting when he was coming into the league. I think now the experiment is over. Drop him. Maybe not in Dynasty. You want to keep him in Dynasty potentially because things happen. But I think in redraft, his value is massively overrated this year. And if you're an owner of him, which I am not, you're probably massively disappointed. But someone who I am an owner of and I am massively disappointed is the quarterback, Justin Fields. Yep. Go back a couple of months and look at My Guys, the My Guys episode. I had Justin Fields right at the top there. I've dumped him. He is not fun to play with. He has been a drop candidate, not because of him. I still think he is talented. I just think the coaching around him, and I know he came out and slated the coaching, and that didn't cover him in glory. The coaching around him and the scheme fit isn't quite for him. He's not allowed to do what he wants. He's holding onto the ball too long, getting sacks. He's scoring you 12 points for a 5th or 6th round pick. I picked him up in a 15th round as a keeper, effectively, and I still don't see there's value there. I picked up Brock Purdy and Anthony Richardson to replace him. I think that's a tandem that I can go with week on week, and I think Anthony Richardson currently has a lot more upside because he's less likely to get sacked, just as likely to get touchdowns, in my opinion. I think he's a bit of a bigger body that you can rely on. Another name, well, let's go with our only running back on this negative list here. We've talked a little bit about some guys on the Chargers offense that you can play. Josh Kelly is not one of them. I think everyone expected Josh Kelly to come in when Eckler was injured and just slot in. He has not done that. I just don't think he has the explosive capabilities that Eckler has. He's a bit of a journeyman. I think it's shown now, and I wouldn't be surprised if when Eckler's back, they look to retool their running back room and Josh Kelly not be part of it. It's really sad to say because I think he's a nice guy. If you follow him on social media, and I've seen him on YouTube things before, and he seems and comes across really genuine. But I just don't think he's enough at this level, especially when you have an offense that relies so heavily on that position. You saw it last week. I think did Justin Herbert throw it 47 times or something silly like that because they had nothing in the run game, and they were having to chase the game throughout. And obviously they won it in the end. But yeah, it's not a pretty picture over there for any RB2s over in LA for the Chargers, and even against the Vegas Raiders. I think it's going to be a game script game that's not going to lend to him. He's going to be out there because he has to be if Eckler's not, but I don't think it's going to be a running back type game. So he's definitely someone you could drop. Not that you probably picked him up unless you were an Eckler owner. And the last one who broke out so many years ago, and I think we kept expecting him to come back and be that guy, be Mr. Slant Man. Yes, of course, it is Michael Thomas. Available in the 10th or 11th round in most drafts this year, I still don't think he holds that value. And with a questionable quarterback room with Derek Carr in concussion protocol or shoulder protocol, I don't know what he's in at the moment. But I'm not seeing it. He's not really shone. I think with Alvin Kamara coming back, that's where you're going to see a lot of targets get funneled, and Kamara would be a start for me. But it's almost too obvious that he's going to break out because he's so good. But Michael Thomas is someone that I think is destined to be dropped. And this week, playing against Tampa, could go either way. You could crack it out, but I think long term, you're not losing anything by dropping Michael Thomas and picking up someone like Josh Downs or any of the guys that we're talking about here. Right, we have 1, 2, 3 more names that I want to talk about on each side, and we'll go pick for pick. So we'll start off with another positive guy, someone who I think is going to break out. 2 more names. Sorry, I lied. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. 2 or 3. I can't count. 3 more names. Apologies. And you know what? We'll go count. All running backs in my breakouts and a bit of a mix in my busts/drop candidates here. But we'll start off with Indianapolis Colts running back Zach Moss. I think at the very least this week he has proven that he can carry the weight of that team with both Johnny Taylor out and Anthony Richardson as well. He's been more than useful against 2 tough teams as well. I really like Zach Moss. I don't particularly like this game against LA because it's against LA, and I maybe have a heightened opinion of their defense and their run defense. But to be fair, he could run riot, and I could see that happening as well. So Zach Moss is a breakout player who I think will continue to be a starter as they look to trade away Jonathan Taylor when he comes back in week 5. On the negative side, I don't have any more running backs to pick on, so let's pick on another tight end, shall we? Dalton Schultz. This really annoys me because I rated him so highly. I thought he was going to be the guy, but I don't think it's because Dalton Schultz is bad. I think it's because he's still good, but he's been used in a very different way than he was being used under Kellen Moore in Cowboys world in Texas. Dallas, that's the place. Dalton Schultz is not the primary target for CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud having 900 plus passing yards in the first 3 games. I think that comes like 3rd or 4th in the all-time rookie ratings there, just behind Justin Herbert with like 912. He's been great. Yeah, but it hasn't been Schultz going deep or anything like that, or even Schultz being dinked and dunked. He's scored like 2-3 points each week. And I think the experiment is over there. He doesn't need a safety valve. CJ Stroud is willing to throw it deep to guys like Tank Dell, and he's doing well with it. So, yeah, and by the way, Tank Dell, we'll talk about him in a little bit. Really like his performance. 2 top 20 wide receiver performances from a rookie, and a small rookie as well, with touchdowns. You don't see that. It's crazy. He's almost like similar kind of style to Marvin Mims, but just more consistent as well. I probably should have put him on the list as well, so maybe he's an honorable mention for this one. We are going to move on to another breakout star, Ken Walker, 30 points last week. Some people would argue he broke out last year. I wouldn't. I think he was pedestrian last year, but this year I think with the threat of Zach Charbonnet on his back, Zach Charbonnet, who mean stiff arm, by the way, go and watch it if you haven't already last week, but K9 Ken Walker, he has been fantastic. I wish I had him at all, and I think the Seahawks are going to build a bit more. I think they're realizing they can rely less on Geno this year than they did do in last year anyway. And New York on Monday night, I'm really excited by it, and I think they're going to get ahead, and Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet are both going to feast, so I can see that being a 20-point plus game for him. On the other side of the table, did we talk about Dallas a minute ago? We talked about Dallas with Schultz, didn't we? But Schultz's previous teammate and guy in the center, Dak Prescott, I think you can drop him. I think people came in this year thinking he'd be great again after having a very down year last year. And I thought, well, no, he won't be, because he hasn't got Kellen Moore anymore. He's got Mick McCarthy calling plays. I don't like this for Dak at all. And I think I'm right. I'm dropping him if I've got him. I don't have him particularly anywhere. I think I picked up a couple of shares in Best Ball, which I can't drop him. But yeah, I'm not really seeing it for Dak. And after the performance last week where they capitulated against the worst defense, the worst team in the league, I can't see it going any better against New England. They are playing New England. I think they're at home. Yeah, they're at home to New England this week. I can't really see it playing out particularly well for Dak. New England, who have a mean defensive line, and they're stingy. They're just a stingy team. And I think once they take away his first option, Dak panics a little bit and throws those wild interceptions, which is why you saw him lead the interception table last year, despite playing only 12 games. It was not a nice one. But sticking in the NFC East, let's go to DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, I think, is going to be a breakout player. I think he's already broken out after not really knowing where he was going to sit in the landscape. Rashad Penny was talked about, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell. DeAndre Swift was almost like, it's assumed that he's going to go down. He showed some previous season form, and I'm all for it. Yes, it's recency bias. I think he is a beneficiary of the passing game not being fantastic over there in Philadelphia. They're playing Washington. I think it's going to be a tough game that they're going to try and grind out, and I think they're going to lean on DeAndre Swift to get that on all 3 downs, we would hope. And finally, someone who I think you can drop because he drops a lot. This is a beautiful segue. Kadarius Toney. He's not what he should be. He was a gadget player who had a lot of athleticism, but no concentration and apparently no hands. And even Patrick Mahomes, with all his wealth of options, he cannot be saved. He's not the wide receiver 1. The wide receiver 1 is still Travis Kelce, and whoever he chooses to be that week. It could be Sky Moore, it could be Rashee Rice. I mean, after week 1, have we really seen much of Rashee Rice? No, we haven't. It could be Jarrett McKinnon for all we know. It's going to be Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and then everyone else. And Kadarius Toney is just in that mix of players who it could be his week, but more than likely he's going to drop 5 passes. So there's your breakouts. Your breakouts being Marvin Mims, A.K.A, Jared Goff, Zach Moss, Parham, Ken Walker, DeAndre Swift, and an honorable mention for Tank Dell as well. I think that's worthwhile saying as well. I think of these things on the fly, so it's definitely worth adding some honorable mentions in there. And on your drops, some big names here: Kyle Pitts, Justin Fields, Michael Thomas, Dalton Schultz, Dak Prescott, Kadarius Toney, and Josh Kelly. Yeah, I think you've got some interesting considerations for this week. And you know what? I didn't look at the start about what happened last week. And last week I had an okay time. I ended up going 8 for 14. So I hit on a couple. I hit on Tyreek Hill being great. Did not on Garrett Wilson. I did not read that game properly at all. Zach Wilson is definitely the worst quarterback in the league. And I was still talking about someone who did it last night. He's just awful. Michael Pittman was great. Travis Kelce was great. George Pickens did okay, but DeAndre Swift, Kyron Williams did great, and Gibbs did just meh. I cancelled out a couple of things for injuries because obviously Derek Carr was injured, but he was on target to do very well, so I was still confident in that response. Matt Breida didn't do well. I didn't predict him to do well. He wasn't Saquon. And Njoku was naff. Josh Kelly was naff, and again, he's now a drop candidate. So twice, two in a row, and then he's become a drop candidate. Josh Dobbs, I got incredibly wrong, and Calvin Austin did better than expected. Josh Dobbs going for the QB4. Again, I seem to be better at predicting who's bad than good. I just be able to point out people's flaws. But so far, I think that takes us to, that's 8 plus 14. We're 24. No, we're not. We're 26 or 41. So we're above 500. It's not great so far. I'll post my results on Twitter, so you guys can mock me. But I think if you can trust that more than half my predictions are going to be correct, then you know what, that's something I can hang my hat on. Right, we'll be back shortly. We're going to do a new segment around DFS because it's an exciting format. And I haven't played a huge amount of it. I dabbled with it last year, but I've been speaking to some people, and this is very heavily UK focused. So if you're a foreign listener, I would tune out. But have a look at what we've got. I'm going to try this new segment, and we'll see how it goes. Right, competition time, guys. Rules are on the screen as you see them now, but part 1 is we're trying to drive subscriptions to rugbywithpads.com. You can find all the information here, but for every single subscription you make from £1 a month, you can get all the benefits like you would do on a normal Patreon. But as you go up, you can also get merch with it as well. And this is how we're selling our merch that you've seen me wearing during some of these YouTube videos as well. If you enter for as little as £1, you'll be entered into the competition. There's bonus entries for higher tiers as well. Now, we'll announce the winner of that on the pod once we've got a minimum of 10 subscribers, and then part 2 comes in. So get ready already. Go to youtube.com @rugbywithpads, click subscribe, and comment on any of the videos. And there's a fair few. We bring out the videos at the same time as we do on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you'll be entered into a competition to win either a t-shirt or a pop socket. It's free, but we must make sure that part 1 is won first. Let's drive that traffic over to rugbywithpads.com, and the draw announcements will be on the pod. I'll keep you updated with what we're doing and put some stuff on socials. Right, back to the pod. Hello and welcome back, and a different view of me, and you notice I've got a lovely iPad picture here with Joe Burrow's face on it, and I've got an app open and it's got some money on it, and this is going to be a segment that I'm doing in partnership with the Fantasy Gameday App. I'll put a link in the description below if you're interested, but I've been interested in DFS and fantasy sports for a good long while now. DFS has been something that is pretty much exclusively played in America. The idea behind it is you pick your lineup for that particular game week. You bid based on auctions, so every player has a value to them. You have a budget that you can play with, etc. And the idea is you build a team and you play against someone else. It's not bookmaking, it's a pool betting. So you go up against, and you can see my previous lineups. Let's have a look at their complete games here. Let's look at last week. You go up against here 86, 85 other people, and you play, and the prize is distributed amongst the group. So I'd recommend, if you're interested in this kind of format, you can go and take a look. Message me if you want any links or hints or tips or anything like that. But it's a game that I play, and I started playing it for fun, and the guys approached me and asked me if I would do a segment on this, and more than happy to, because I think as part the app is created by a bunch of British fantasy football enthusiasts. This is not a big corporation behind this or anything like that. I spoke to one of the guys last night, and it was really refreshing hearing a fresh take on this. And I'm not a gambler by any shape or form, but I really enjoy this kind of thing because it just gives me another way to play fantasy sports, and the fact that I can do a little tickle on it for £7.50 and maybe win something, that'd be not lovely. But I wanted to just kind of highlight this because a lot of my idols in the fantasy sports world, the likes of the fantasy footballers, talk about DFS, and it's something that we don't do here in the UK because we don't have a huge amount of access to it. Now we've got access to it, I want to talk about it. So each week I'm going to do a very short segment, just a few minutes. I'm not going to explain it like this every time, on some values I think are there in the world of DFS. And I'm going to be using this app because it's the best one I've found to use it on. So the idea behind this is, you can actually, it's a bit more like British fantasy football. If you've ever played the EPL or FPL stuff, you get double points for a captain. They don't let you do quarterbacks because they score super points, but your flex players can be chosen at your captain spots as well. I'm not going to build the team because I don't want you guys to just copy it. But if you're interested in this, links are below, all of that fun stuff, or message me. I'm more than happy to get you in touch with the guys. But let's look at some players who I think are going to be interesting. And I was looking through this, and Puka Nacua is an interesting one. His hype is so wild at the moment. I'm not sure whether he's worth 6,800, but I think he could have a really good game against Indianapolis this week. I think better value for me is probably Devontae Adams. It's seven grand. And these are all priced in pounds as well, which I really love. It's not like I'm not playing with dollars in fab budgets. I'm British. I've got pound sterling in my hand. There's a couple of interesting pickups there, but I think Devontae Adams is going to have a field day. If he should be in my starts. He's a superstar, but he's going to have an absolute field day. And another interesting one that I would be looking at as my captain is Derrick Henry to have a bounce back against Cincinnati, who basically don't have a running defense, a rush defense. They're pretty terrible at. So the way I'll be looking, okay, who's going to be scoring me the most points? Who do I want to spend big on? My captain. I then probably look to build, some wide receivers because PPR scoring here. Who am I thinking is going to be great? Keenan Allen. I really like Keenan Allen this week. The same reasons I like Mike Williams last week before he was injured. He's playing a game where he's going to be in lots of games where there's going to be lots of throwing. He is now the alpha. It's not even a question whether Mike Williams is involved because he's out for the season, which is so shame. I think for $6,000, comparing him to like Justin Jefferson for 82, who's going up against a Carolina defense, which is, it's naff. But Puka Nacua is higher than him. Keenan Allen is a bit of a budget there. And there was another name further down. Yeah, here we go. Stephon Diggs. 115 yards plus last week, loads of catches, touchdown. He's great. I think he's massively undervalued at 5. So I'd like to build my team around value picks, and I probably won't even use the 40,000 budget you've got here. You can definitely have some fun names here, and that's what I like. It's another way of supporting players, I guess, which is why I play fantasy. I've got loads of different teams, and of course I need more players to support and decisions to make. There's some interesting players in the running back room as well. There was one guy who popped for me a bit lower down. I always look for value. Alvin Kamara, obviously 0 fantasy points per game. We don't know what he's going to look like, but he's back. He had a full off season with the team. I think he's going to be great. He's shown that he can have stupid games, like 6 touchdown games. I think that's great. And he's only £200 more than Devin A.K.A, who is going to have a great game. But I think Alvin Kamara, you almost trust better. He's not going to be in a timeshare with Jamal Williams, who is now out. Devin A.K.A is going to be in a timeshare with Mostert. So I'd be looking at Kamara over Mostert there potentially. once I've done my skill players, I tend to look at my QB rating, and let's pick out some guys who I really like this week. I like Keenan Allen, therefore I like Justin Herbert a huge amount. I think he's going to be throwing a lot. But I think another interesting one just below him at 6,400 here is Anthony Richardson. I've talked about him already today. Anthony Richardson, I think, has shows as much upside, if not more, for the touchdown capabilities than Justin Fields. I think he's definitely great. If he bounces back for injury, I think that's great. And even just at the same value at 6,400, I don't think Kirk Cousins will kill you. He's not throwing a huge amount of interceptions. He's just not winning games. And winning games and being good at fantasy football, two different, very, very different skills. I then, because I always talk about tight end being so thin, unfortunately, this is a Sunday only game. So you play it on Sunday. Sunday Stars, I think that's what it's called. Let me just check. Yeah, we are. Sunday Stars. I was right. But obviously, Travis Kelce not playing on Sunday by the looks of it. So we're stuck with a few lesser players potentially. TJ Hawkinson, yeah, okay. Yeah, I like him for the same reason I like Kirk Cousins. Mark Andrews is the number one target there, so I probably lean towards him. But a bit further down, I've already talked about him. Donald Parham, that touchdown upside is available for only 2,600. He's less than Okonkwo, who hasn't done anything. Cole Kmet hasn't done anything. George Kittle hasn't done anything. I think Donald Parham is the play this week, especially if I want to free up some money for someone like Justin Jefferson, who, despite being so expensive, is going to score a huge amount. There's a bunch of other budgets as well. I think if we look in the running back room, there was a couple of budget guys around the $4,000 mark. Where are they? Like Alex Madison here, 3,800, had a bounce back game last week, fantastic. James Conner had over 100 yards last week and like 30 points or something silly like that. I expect him to continue to be the only back, although he is against San Fran. They might not have the luxury of running it quite as much as they did last week against Dallas, which was a bonkers game. Brian Robinson continues to be the number one, but again, you're going up against possibly the best defense there. But Joe Mixon here, 3,400. Yeah, he's had a couple of bum games, but he's still Joe Mixon. I still think he is absolutely quality. So I'll be looking at him as a bit of a budget as well. On the wide receiver side, we talked about Justin Jefferson, but his previous stablemate, where is he? I think he's around 3,400. But Adam Thielen for 3,600. With Mingo out and him scoring 35 points, he's the focal point of that offense, especially if Andy Dalton plays. I'd be looking at, if Andy Dalton plays, I'd be looking to crack out Thielen as well. And that's what you want to do. You want to see if you can find little wins in DFS to get you around the edges. And I won't scroll all the way down here, but Quentin Johnson at $2,000 is a definite budget buy, but 26% targeted on Roots Run last week. I think my only piece of advice when you're doing here is make sure you get a really good captain who you can know scores reliable points. It's just like you do in Fantasy Premier League. And for tight end, don't skimp out on it because it drops so quickly. I think after the first 5, there's no one I'm interested in except maybe Donald Parham as a play if I want to shift the budget. But yeah, if you guys are interested, hit me up on socials, hit them up on socials. I'll put all the links below. It was great fun to play this last week. They're really trying to build something. They're trying to build a community around this, and they're reaching out to content creators for fantasy sports in the UK as well. So you might hear a bit more from them, but I really like the app. I think it's fun to play as well. It obviously always gamble responsibly. This is a betting app. I don't know, it's pool betting, not bookmakers, able to make prop bets or things like that. But do behave responsibly, and they have a load of controls to do that. You're only allowed to make so many lineups. Your spending limits, you've got all those controls. It is really good, and the guys seem genuine, and they just want to make this work, and they want to be part of the conversation when it comes to this, because the sport is growing. And I don't think they're aiming to be a Paddy Power or a DraftKings anytime soon. But if they can contribute to what is a very positive community in the UK and get people talking about the game that they love, that's what they're looking to do. Exactly. Yeah, and that's why it meshed so well with me when I was speaking to the guys yesterday, because that's exactly what I tried and do on this pod. Right, we'll take a very short break, and then I'll be back with the goodbyes and all of that. So see you on the other side. So as always, Thank you so much for listening. Really do appreciate it. Every time that someone clicks download, it makes me warm and fuzzy inside that people listen to me. If you're interested in supporting, obviously on the socials, bring it up here as well. But we've got the whole new lineup of Rugby with Pads gear that you can buy. Either go to store.rugbywithpads or directly search for us on Etsy. You can get cheaper gear actually as well if you want to buy a membership to the pod as well and support it in a Patreon style. Rugbywithpads.com. I'd really appreciate if you could just, if everyone who listens to this shares it on their socials once, I'd love that. I would, I'd happily retag you and all. Like, you get the instant Instagram fame if you want that. But if you can share it with one person, that would bring me so much happiness that we're building a little community here, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to spread the gospel of fantasy football over here in the UK. But thank you so much for listening. As always, all the socials down in the bottom there at Rugby with Pads. I'll be back on Saturday or Sunday with a bye-week episode, because we're prepping for bye weeks going into week 5. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, I will see you on the virtual gridiron.